The archive room smelled of old data crystals and recycled air. Kelrith ran her 3 fingers across the ancient storage units, feeling the vibrations of information humming inside. She had spent 40 cycles of her life in this forgotten corner of the Viridian Central Library, and she loved every moment of it. Most Viridians thought her work was useless. Who cared about old myths and dead civilizations? The galaxy had moved forward. The Galactic Coalition had brought peace to 47 species across thousands of worlds. The past was just stories now, tales to teach children about dangers that no longer existed. But Kelrith believed every story had truth buried inside it. Today, she was reviewing the human files again. These were her favorite myths, though she would never admit it to her colleagues. They would laugh at her for taking such obvious fairy tales seriously. Humans were the boogeyman of ancient space, the monsters parents described to make their younglings behave. Eat your nutrition paste, or the humans will get you, mothers said across a dozen worlds. The humans never stop, never sleep, never give up. They chase you across the stars until you drop from exhaustion. Kelrith pulled up a file on her display screen. It showed a crude drawing from 15,000 years ago. The creature in the image stood on 2 legs, had 2 arms, and a flat face with forward-facing eyes like a predator. The text beneath it read, Human Warrior, Species Classification, Persistence Predator, Homeworld, Terra, Status, Extinct, or Mythological. She had read every account. The humans supposedly came from a death world, a planet so dangerous that survival itself made them nearly indestructible. They could run for days without stopping. They could heal from terrible wounds. They could eat almost anything. They lived on a world with weather that could kill, animals that hunted them, and diseases that should have wiped them out. Instead, they thrived. The story said humans reached the stars before most species discovered fire. They built ships that could cross the galaxy. They made friends easily, but enemies even easier. And then 50,000 years ago, they simply vanished. The Great Silence, scholars called it. Every human settlement, every ship, every trace of their civilization disappeared in less than a century. Most historians believed humans never existed at all. They were just a collection of scary stories that different species had invented independently, the same way many cultures created myths about demons or ghosts. Kelrith wanted to believe they were real. The evidence was thin, but it was there. Ships with strange designs found in dead systems, weapons technology that seemed too advanced for its age, and the consistency of the descriptions across species that had never met each other. Her communicator buzzed. She touched the device on her neck. Archivist Kelrith speaking. Kelrith, this is Central Command. The voice belonged to Administrator Vorn, her direct supervisor. He sounded annoyed as usual. Stop whatever useless research you're doing. We need you to review some data. What kind of data? Kelrith asked, already saving her work. A distress signal came from Tarsus 7, one of the mining colonies on the frontier. They reported unknown ships in their system before the signal cut out. Command wants you to check if these ships match any historical designs in our database. Kelrith felt her hearts beat faster. Unknown ships were rare. The galaxy was well explored. Send me the data. I'll analyze it immediately. Don't get excited. It's probably raiders or some lost exploration vessel from a minor species. Command just wants to check all possibilities before sending a fleet. Vorn disconnected. The data arrived in her system moments later. Kelrith opened the files and froze. Her breath caught in her throat. The images were blurry, taken from long distance by the colony's automated sensors, but the shape was unmistakable. She had seen these designs before. In the oldest files, in the myths and legends, the ships were sleek and angular, covered in strange markings. They had a brutal efficiency to their construction, nothing decorative or wasteful. These were warships built by people who understood violence intimately, and the symbols on their hulls matched drawings she had seen in texts from 12 different extinct civilizations. Kelrith pulled up the human files again, her hands shaking. She compared the images side by side. The match was not perfect, but it was close enough to make her scales prickle with fear. No, she whispered to herself. It's not possible. She ran every test she knew. She checked for fraud, for manipulation, for any sign this was a hoax. The data was clean. The images were real. Ships matching human mythology had appeared on the edge of Coalition space. Kelrith immediately sent a priority message to Administrator Vorn. She marked it urgent and included all her comparative analysis. Then she sat back and waited, her mind racing. What if humans were real? What if they had been real all along? Where had they been for 50,000 years? And why were they back now? The old stories painted humans as unstoppable warriors, but also as curious explorers and fierce protectors of their allies. They were contradictions, capable of terrible violence but also surprising kindness. They had destroyed species that attacked them, but adopted orphaned aliens into their own families. They were the most dangerous beings in the galaxy and the most loyal friends anyone could have, if the myths were true. 3 hours passed before her communicator buzzed again. This time it was not Vorn. The voice belonged to someone much higher in the command structure. Archivist Kelrith, this is High Counselor Draven. I have reviewed your analysis. I want you to understand something very clearly. You will not speak of this to anyone. You will delete any personal copies of this data. This is a matter of coalition security. Kelrith's blood ran cold. High Counselor, if these ships are what I think they are raiders, Draven interrupted. Nothing more. Some primitive species playing with stolen technology. The Council is dispatching a patrol fleet to deal with them. This matter is closed. Do you understand? Yes, High Counselor, Kelrith said quietly. Good. Return to your normal duties. The connection ended. Kelrith sat in the darkness of her archive room, surrounded by ancient stories and forgotten truths. She looked at the images of the ships on her screen, then at the drawings of humans from 15,000 years ago. The Council was making a mistake. She knew it in her bones. In every instinct her species had developed over millions of years of evolution. Those ships were not built by raiders or primitives. They were built by something far more dangerous. High Counselor Draven did not believe in myths. He had risen to power through politics and manipulation, not scholarship. He thought the universe could be controlled through force and bureaucracy. He was about to learn a painful lesson. Kelrith began making secret copies of all the human files. If she was right, if the legends were real, then the galaxy was about to change forever. And someone needed to remember the truth no matter what the Council wanted. Outside her window the stars burned with their ancient light. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between worlds, something from the old stories was returning, and the galaxy was not ready. Commander Thrace stood on the bridge of the Coalition warship Endless Victory and felt supremely confident. His fleet consisted of 12 ships, each one armed with the latest weapons technology. He had fought pirates, rebellions, and border disputes for 30 years. Nothing in the galaxy frightened him anymore. The unknown ships waited at the edge of the Tarsus system, silent and still. They had not responded to any hails. They had not moved since the fleet arrived. Thrace studied them on his main display screen and sneered. Primitive designs, he said to his second officer. Look at them. Angular and crude. Probably some forgotten colony that lost contact centuries ago and regressed to basic technology. Should we attempt communication again, Commander? The second officer asked. No, I'm tired of waiting. Charge weapons and move to attack formation. We'll disable their engines and board them. Maybe we'll find something valuable in their cargo holds. The fleet moved forward. Thrace watched the distance close. The unknown ship still did not move or respond. 5,000 kilometers, 3,000, 1,000. Then everything changed. The unknown ships came alive all at once. They moved with a speed and grace that made Thrace's blood freeze. They separated into combat formations, each ship covering the others perfectly, and then they spoke. The voice came through every communication channel at once. It was calm and clear, speaking perfect Coalition standard language. Coalition vessels, this is Captain Maria Santos of the Terran Exploration Fleet. We mean you no harm. We are conducting peaceful exploration of this region. Please withdraw to a safe distance and we can discuss this situation diplomatically. Terran. The word hung in Thrace's mind. He knew that word from somewhere, from old academy lessons he had ignored. Terran? His second officer whispered. Commander, that's the ancient name for... I know what it is, Thrace snapped. It's a myth. These primitives are using old stories to frighten us. It won't work. He opened a channel. Unknown vessels, you are in violation of Coalition space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. If you resist, we will destroy you. There was a long pause. When the human captain spoke again, her voice had changed. It was still calm, but now it carried an edge like a blade. Commander, we have tried to be polite. Let me be very clear. We are not violating your space. We are in neutral territory, as your own navigation charts will show. We will defend ourselves if attacked. Please reconsider your actions. Thrace felt his pride stung. How dare these primitives lecture him? Final warning. Surrender or be destroyed. Commander, his weapons officer said nervously. Their ships are reading strange energy signatures. I don't recognize the technology. Perhaps we should fire, Thrace ordered. The fleet opened fire. Missiles and energy beams crossed the space between the two groups. Thrace expected the unknown ships to explode or at least take heavy damage. Instead, the impossible happened. The human ships moved. Not just moved, but danced through space like living things. They dodged attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. Their defensive shields absorbed hits that should have overwhelmed any known technology. And then they returned fire. The first coalition ship exploded in seconds. The second lost all power and went dark. The third tried to retreat and was disabled with surgical precision. Its engines destroyed, but its crew compartment left intact. Thrace watched in horror as his fleet fell apart. The human ships were everywhere at once. They seemed to predict every move his captains made. They targeted weak points in the coalition vessels with impossible accuracy, and they did it all while their captain continued speaking. We are disabling your ships, not destroying them. This is mercy, Commander. Please order your remaining vessels to stand down. All ships concentrate fire on the lead vessel. Thrace screamed into his communicator. Overwhelm their defenses. The remaining ships focused their weapons on the human captain's ship. For a moment, it seemed to work. The human shields flickered under the combined assault, but then two more human ships moved in front of their leader, taking the hits on their own shields while the captain's ship recovered. They're protecting each other, the second officer said in disbelief. They're coordinating without any communication lag. How is that possible? Thrace had no answer. He watched as another coalition ship went dark, then another. The human ships were toying with them now, he realized. They could have destroyed the entire fleet in the first attack. Instead, they were teaching a lesson. Commander, 6 ships lost, 4 disabled. We're alone, his weapons officer reported. Shields at 30%. Engines damaged. Thrace looked at the tactical display. His proud fleet was gone. 12 ships reduced to wreckage and floating hulks in less than 10 minutes. And the human ships had barely been scratched. The captain's voice came through again. Commander Thrace, you have lost. Order your crew to abandon ship. We will allow your escape pods to leave safely. This is your last chance. Something in Thrace broke. The reality of what he was seeing crashed through his arrogance. These were not primitives. These were not raiders. These were something from the old stories, the myths that everyone said were impossible. All crew abandon ship, he said quietly. This is Commander Thrace. Abandon ship immediately. His crew did not argue. They had seen the same thing he had. They rushed to the escape pods while Thrace stayed on the bridge, watching the human ships on his screen. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like predators that evolution had perfected over millions of years. The last escape pod launched. Thrace was about to follow when the human captain spoke one more time. Commander, one more thing. We tracked your fleet's origin point. We know where your homeworld is. We know where your command stations are. We know everything about your coalition. We have been watching you for longer than you realize. Go home and tell your leaders this. Humanity has returned to the galaxy. We will not conquer. We will not invade. But we will not be threatened, dismissed, or attacked. The next fleet that fires on us will not receive mercy. Thrace ran for the escape pod. He climbed inside and launched, leaving his ship behind. Through the small window, he watched the human ships turn away and jump to hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of his fleet as a message. The escape pods drifted for 3 hours before a coalition rescue ship arrived. Thrace spent those hours in silence, replaying the battle in his mind. Every tactical mistake he had made, every assumption that had proven false, every moment of arrogance that had cost his crew their ships and nearly their lives. The rescue ship took the survivors back to coalition space. Thrace wrote his report in the medical bay while doctors treated his injuries. He knew what would happen. The High Council would not believe him. They would think he had panicked, exaggerated, or even lied about what happened. But he had the sensor logs. He had the testimony of 300 survivors. He had the wreckage of 11 warships to prove his story. And most importantly, he had seen them with his own eyes. Humans were real. The myths were true. And the galaxy had just become a much more dangerous place for anyone foolish enough to test them. The Grand Council chamber on Centrum Prime had seen many emergencies in its 3,000-year history, but never had all 47 species gathered in such panic. Kelrith stood in the observer section, watching the chaos unfold below. Council members shouted at each other in a dozen languages. Translators struggled to keep up with the noise. High Counselor Draven stood at the central podium trying to restore order. His scales had turned dark purple with stress. "Silence," he roared. "We will address this crisis with logic and reason, not fear." Logic? Ambassador Krill of the Mantoid Hive slammed his claws on his desk. 11 warships destroyed by 4 unknown vessels. Where is the logic in that? Not destroyed, Draven corrected. Disabled. Most of our crews survived. Because the humans allowed them to survive. This came from Counselor Vesh, a floating gas being from the nebula worlds. Her voice boomed through speakers. They showed mercy, which means they could have shown none. We attacked them, and they proved they could wipe us out any time they choose. The word humans sent a new wave of panic through the chamber. Kelrith watched different species react in different ways. Some looked terrified, others angry. A few seemed curious. The Viridians, her own people, mostly looked embarrassed that their commander had been defeated so easily. "We do not know for certain they are the mythological humans," Draven insisted. "They could be using that name to frighten us." "They could be—" "I know for certain," Kelrith said loudly. The chamber went silent. Hundreds of eyes turned to her. Kelrith felt her throat go dry, but she stepped forward anyway. "High Counselor, you asked me to analyze the ships 3 days ago. I told you then they matched human mythology. You ordered me to keep silent. I kept silent, and 11 ships were lost because of it." Draven's face went pale. "Archivist, you are speaking out of turn. Return to your station or let her speak," Ambassador Krill demanded. "If she has knowledge of these humans, we need to hear it." Draven looked around the chamber and saw he had lost control. He gestured angrily at Kelrith. "Fine. Come down and share your precious myths with the Council. Let's see how useful old stories are against warships." Kelrith walked down to the speaker's platform on shaking legs. She activated the holographic display and pulled up her files. Images of ancient ships appeared around the chamber, rotating slowly. Side by side with them, she displayed Commander Thrace's sensor logs. "These designs match," she said. "Not perfectly, but close enough that we cannot ignore it. More importantly, look at these tactical recordings." She played the battle footage. The Council watched in silence as the human ships moved through space with impossible grace. This fighting style appears in 17 different historical accounts from species that existed before the Great Silence. The humans fought exactly like this 50,000 years ago. They used the same formations, the same precision strikes, the same coordination. So they are the legendary humans, Counselor Vesh said quietly. The persistence predators. The species that survived the impossible and built an empire before disappearing. If the legends are accurate, Kelrith continued, then humans left the galaxy voluntarily. They did not die out or destroy themselves. They simply decided to explore beyond our region of space. The question we should ask is, why are they back? To conquer, Draven said bitterly. Obviously. They've returned to take what we've built. Actually, the historical record suggests the opposite, Kelrith said. Humans rarely conquered for conquest's sake. They expanded to explore, to find new things, to satisfy their curiosity. When they fought, it was usually in self-defense or to protect their allies. According to the myths, humans were extremely loyal to friends and absolutely terrifying to enemies. Ambassador Krill leaned forward. What happened to their allies when the humans vanished? Kelrith pulled up another file. 7 species went extinct within 500 years of the Great Silence. 3 more collapsed into civil war. The humans apparently kept many smaller civilizations stable through protection and trade. When they left, those civilizations fell apart. The Council absorbed this in troubled silence. Finally, a small voice spoke from the back. It belonged to Representative Pip, a member of the peaceful Aquarian species. Perhaps we should consider that the humans came back to help, not to harm. Perhaps they saw something that worried them and returned to investigate. Help? Draven laughed harshly. By destroying our ships? By disabling our ships after we fired first, Pip corrected gently. Archivist Kelrith is right. They showed mercy. If they wanted to conquer us, Commander Thrace and his crews would be dead. A junior officer rushed into the chamber, breaking protocol. High Counselor, we have reports of more human ships. They've appeared in 7 different systems, They're not attacking, just observing, and he hesitated. One of their ships is requesting permission to send a delegation here. They want to address the council. The chamber erupted in fresh chaos. Some members demanded the humans be allowed to speak. Others wanted to evacuate Centrum Prime immediately. Still others proposed launching a massive military strike before the humans could bring more ships. Draven raised his hands for silence. The council will vote. Do we allow the human delegation to address us, or do we prepare for war? The vote was close, but eventually the diplomats won over the warmongers. 26 species voted to allow the delegation. 20 voted for war. 1 abstained. The humans will be allowed to speak, Draven announced. But they have 24 hours to arrive. After that, we launch the Coalition Armada. If they want peace, they had better convince us quickly. He turned to Kelrith. Archivist, you know more about humans than anyone else alive. You will be part of the diplomatic team that meets them. Kelrith felt dizzy. Me? But I'm just a researcher. I don't have experience with... You're all we have. Draven interrupted. Prepare yourself. We meet the humans in 3 days at the neutral station between Coalition and Frontier Space. Try not to get us all killed. The council adjourned in chaos. Kelrith returned to her archive room and collapsed into her chair. Her hands were still shaking. In 3 days, she would meet beings from mythology. In 3 days, she would stand face to face with humans and try to prevent a war that could destroy the galaxy. She pulled up the human files again and began reading with new urgency. Every detail might matter. Every story might contain a clue about how to communicate with them, how to negotiate with them, how to convince them that the coalition was worth saving. One file caught her attention. It was an old treaty between humans and the Zarkon Empire, a civilization that had vanished 8,000 years ago. The treaty included a human saying that the Zarkon had recorded, "We came in peace, but we are prepared for war. We hope for friends, but we remember our enemies. Give us a reason to trust you, and we will stand with you forever. Give us a reason to fight you, and you will wish we had never existed." Kelrith stared at those words for a long time. Then she began preparing her report for the diplomatic team. Somewhere in the darkness of space, human ships were moving towards Centrum Prime, and the fate of 47 species might depend on what happened when myth became reality. Just hoped the High Council would listen to an archivist who studied old stories, because those old stories were the only warning they had about what humans could do when they stopped being merciful. The neutral station hung in empty space between Coalition territory and the frontier, a small diplomatic outpost that rarely saw use. Today, it hosted the most important meeting in galactic history. Kelrith stood in the docking bay and watched the human shuttle approach through the transparent dome above. The shuttle was small and elegant, moving with the same grace she had seen in the warships. It landed softly on the platform, and the airlock cycled open. Kelrith held her breath. The first human stepped out, and Kelrith almost laughed with relief. They looked exactly like the ancient drawings. 2 arms, 2 legs, flat face with forward-facing eyes. They wore simple dark blue uniforms with strange symbols on their shoulders. 5 humans in total emerged from the shuttle. The lead human was a tall woman with dark skin and short black hair. She walked directly to the Coalition delegation and extended her hand in the traditional human greeting that Kelrith had read about. "I'm Admiral Chen of the Terran Exploration Fleet. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." High Counselor Draven stared at the hand like it might bite him. Kelrith stepped forward quickly and grasped the Admiral's hand, shaking it the way the ancient text described. "I'm Archivist Kelrith. Welcome to Coalition Space, Admiral Chen." Admiral Chen smiled, and Kelrith was surprised by how warm it looked. "An archivist? Then you know about us. That makes this easier." She turned to her companions. "This is Captain Santos, who you spoke with before. Dr. Williams, our chief scientist. Commander Park, head of security. And Ambassador Liu, our diplomatic specialist." Ambassador Liu was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She stepped forward and spoke in a gentle voice. "We have much to discuss. Perhaps we should move to a more comfortable location." The groups relocated to the station's main conference room. It was designed to accommodate many species, with adjustable seating and environmental controls. The humans sat on one side of the long table. The Coalition delegation sat on the other. Kelrith noticed that the humans seemed relaxed, almost casual, while the Coalition members were rigid with tension. Admiral Chen began without preamble. I'll be direct because we don't have time for games. We left this galaxy 50,000 years ago to explore beyond. We traveled to other galaxies, met new species, saw wonders you can't imagine. We never planned to return. Then why did you? Draven asked coldly. Because we detected signals suggesting a large-scale war was about to start here. Specific patterns in communications, military movements, resource stockpiling. We've seen it before in other places. Someone is planning something big and devastating. Admiral Chen's face turned serious. We don't interfere in local politics normally, but we still consider this region our ancient home. We won't let it burn if we can prevent it. Counselor Vesh leaned forward. You speak of war, but we have maintained peace for 3,000 years. Why would we destroy what we built? Ambassador Liu activated a holographic display. Data streamed across it showing military buildup in Coalition space, coded transmissions between certain council members, secret weapons development, and fleet movements. Because someone on your council is planning a coup, they're going to stage a false flag attack, blame an external enemy, and use the crisis to seize absolute power. The Coalition delegation erupted in accusations and denials. Kelrith watched the humans carefully. They sat quietly, letting the Coalition members shout at each other. They showed no anger or frustration, just patience. She had read about this too, about how humans could wait when necessary despite their reputation for persistence. Finally, Draven slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. You show us vague data and expect us to believe you? For all we know, you are the ones planning to attack. This could be a manipulation to weaken us before you strike. Dr. Williams spoke for the first time. He was an older man with white hair and tired eyes. High Counselor, I've spent 60 years of my life studying extinct civilizations across 3 galaxies. I've seen this pattern 18 times. Every single time, the people in power refused to believe the warning until it was too late. You don't have to trust us. Just investigate the data we've provided. We will investigate nothing based on the word of myths and legends, Draven said. This meeting is over. We gave you a chance to explain yourselves. You failed. Kelrith felt her heart sink. The humans had come in peace, had offered help, and Draven was throwing it away because of pride. She stood up. High Counselor, we should at least consider. Archivist, you are dismissed. Return to the shuttle. Before Kelrith could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The lights flickered and turned red. A voice came through the emergency system. Alert! Multiple ships detected on approach. Unknown signatures. They are firing on the station. This is not a drill. All personnel to escape pods. Draven's face went pale. What, who would attack a neutral diplomatic station? Admiral Chen was already moving, speaking quickly into a small device on her wrist. Santos Park, get to the shuttle. Williams, Liu, with me. We need to get these people to safety. She looked at Draven. Counselor, was your government tracking your location? Of course, Draven said. Standard security protocol. Then they know exactly where you are, Admiral Chen said. And they're trying to kill you. This is the false flag attack we warned about. They'll blame us for destroying this station and killing the High Counselor. It gives them the excuse they need to seize power and start a war. Draven stared at her. But that would mean members of my own council would do anything to gain absolute power, yes. Admiral Chen grabbed Draven's arm. We can discuss this later. Right now we run. The group rushed toward the docking bay. Explosions rocked the station as the attacking ships fired again. Through the windows, Kelrith could see 6 ships bearing Coalition markings. They were black operations vessels, designed to look like regular military ships but actually controlled by intelligence agencies. They're Coalition ships, Draven said in disbelief. Ships are easy to fake, Commander Park said as they ran. Trust me, I know. We need to reach our shuttle before they breach the station. They reached the docking bay just as the main airlock exploded inward. Soldiers in unmarked armor poured through, firing weapons. Commander Park pulled out a small pistol and returned fire with incredible accuracy, dropping 3 soldiers in as many shots. Captain Santos appeared from the human shuttle, carrying a much larger weapon and laid down covering fire. Go, Park shouted. Get them on board. The Coalition delegates ran for the shuttle. Kelrith helped Draven up the ramp. Behind them, the humans fought with a precision and ferocity that matched all the legends. They moved like they had trained together for decades, each one covering the others perfectly. They didn't shoot to kill unless necessary, instead targeting weapons and armor to disable opponents. But more soldiers kept coming. Park took a hit to her shoulder and went down. Admiral Chen dragged her back toward the shuttle while Santos continued firing. "We're out of time," Santos yelled. "Then we make time," Admiral Chen said. She pulled a small device from her belt and threw it into the middle of the attacking soldiers. It exploded with a flash of light and sound, disorienting them. "Everyone on board now." They scrambled into the shuttle. The airlock sealed behind them just as bullets slammed into the hull. The shuttle lifted off and shot out of the docking bay. Behind them, the neutral station exploded as the attacking ships destroyed all evidence of the meeting. Inside the shuttle, Kelrith tried to catch her breath. Around her, the coalition delegates looked terrified and confused. The humans were already working, treating Commander Park's wound, piloting the shuttle through enemy fire, and sending out emergency transmissions. Admiral Chen sat down next to Draven. "High Counselor, those were your own people trying to kill you. We captured 3 of them alive. They're in our holding cells right now. We can prove they were sent by council members working together to stage a coup." Draven said nothing. He just stared at his hands, his entire worldview crumbling around him. Kelrith touched the Admiral's arm. "Thank you for saving us. The legends said humans protect their allies." Admiral Chen smiled sadly. "We're not your allies yet, Archivist, but we'd like to be. First, we need to stop a war." The human flagship Endurance hung in high orbit above Centrum Prime, and from her observation deck, Kelrith watched the galaxy tear itself apart. The broadcast had gone out 3 hours ago, showing the captured soldiers confessing their orders, revealing the conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of the Coalition Council. 16 council members had been plotting the coup. 16 species suddenly found themselves without trusted leadership. Now war had begun. Not the war the conspirators had planned, but something worse. Civil war across coalition space, loyalist fleets fighting against conspiracy forces, worlds declaring independence, trade routes collapsing, refugees fleeing by the millions. Admiral Chen stood beside Kelrith, watching the tactical displays with sad eyes. "This always happens," she said quietly. "When people discover their leaders betrayed them, trust breaks down. It takes years to rebuild." "We don't have years," High Counselor Draven said. He had aged 10 cycles in the past 3 days. His scales were dull and his eyes hollow. "The conspiracy forces control half our military. They've seized key systems. Even with your help, Admiral, we cannot win quickly." "You're right," Admiral Chen agreed. "You can't win quickly with conventional tactics. But humans don't fight conventional wars when we don't have to." She activated a new display. "This is what we're going to do. Human ships are already positioning themselves at every major civilian population center, not to conquer, to protect. When the conspiracy forces try to threaten civilians to gain leverage, they'll find human Marines in their way." "You're using yourselves as shields," Kelrith said in wonder. "That's what good allies do," Captain Santos said from her station. "We didn't come back to watch good people die. We'll hold the line while the coalition sorts itself out." The first test came within the hour. A conspiracy fleet arrived at the colony world of Haven Station, home to 3 billion civilians. The fleet commander demanded the station surrender or be destroyed. Before the defenders could respond, 6 human ships appeared between the fleet and the station. Kelrith listened to the transmission from the human commander. "Conspiracy fleet, this is Commander Jackson of the Terran Defense Force. You will not harm these civilians. Turn back now or we will stop you." The conspiracy commander laughed. 6 ships against 30? You're outnumbered. Move aside or be destroyed." "Numbers don't mean much when you don't know how to fight," Commander Jackson replied calmly. "Last chance. Turn back." The conspiracy fleet opened fire. The human ships moved into a defensive formation that Kelrith recognized from her research, something called a Spartan wall. They absorbed the incoming fire on overlapping shields while their own weapons targeted the conspiracy ships with surgical precision. Not killing shots. Disabling strikes that left crews alive but ships helpless. In 15 minutes, the conspiracy fleet was floating wreckage. Not a single civilian had been harmed. The human ships hadn't even fired at full power. Similar scenes played out across coalition space. At Viridian Prime, human soldiers held the Capitol building against conspiracy troops for 18 hours until loyalist reinforcements arrived. On the trade world of Nexus 4, human ships escorted refugee transports through active war zones, daring anyone to fire on civilians under their protection. At the fortress world of Bastion, Human Marines taught Loyalist forces new tactics, turning frightened defenders into effective fighters. But the conspiracy had one more card to play. Intelligence reports revealed they were preparing a doomsday weapon, something hidden in deep space during years of secret preparation. A weapon that could destroy entire star systems. They planned to use it on Centrum Prime itself, destroying the heart of the Coalition and blaming the humans for the attack. Admiral Chen received the intelligence report in her ready room. Kelrith was there, having become the Admiral's unofficial liaison to the Coalition government. She watched Chen read the report twice, her face growing darker. "They built a system killer," Chen said quietly. "We've seen weapons like this before. Used once, 40,000 years ago, by a species that was losing a war. They destroyed 3 star systems before we stopped them. Billions died. Can we stop this one?" Kelrith asked. "Yes, but it will require exposing our full military capability. Once we do that, there's no going back. The galaxy will know exactly what humans can do." Chen looked at Kelrith. "Are you sure you want that? Are you sure your people want to know how dangerous we really are?" Kelrith thought about the past weeks, about Commander Thrace's fleet, disabled but not destroyed, about the neutral station, where humans had fought to save Coalition delegates who had doubted them, about Haven Station and dozens of other worlds protected by human shields when no one else would stand between civilians and destruction. "I think we already know," Kelrith said. "We know you're dangerous, but we also know you're honorable. Show us what you can do, Admiral. Save our worlds." Admiral Chen nodded once. She activated her communications system. "All human fleet elements, this is Admiral Chen. Authorization code Sierra November 4. You are weapons free. I repeat, weapons free. Show them what the Terran Defense Force can do." Across Coalition space, human ships that had been holding back suddenly revealed their true power. Stealth vessels that had been hiding in deep space became visible. Dozens of them, hundreds, surrounding the conspiracy's key installations. Massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed any Coalition ship appeared from hyperspace, their weapon systems lighting up like small stars. Fighters poured from carrier ships, swarms of them moving in perfect coordination. The conspiracy forces suddenly realized they weren't fighting an exploration fleet. They were fighting a military force that had conquered 3 galaxies and learned from every conflict along the way. The doomsday weapon in deep space never had a chance to fire. Human ships appeared around it in minutes, their weapons already charged. They cut through its defenses like they weren't there. Marines boarded the weapon platform and seized control without firing a shot, using tactics and technology the conspiracy forces had never seen. The conspiracy's main fleet, gathered for a final assault on Centrum Prime, found itself surrounded by a human battle group that seemed to appear from nowhere. Admiral Chen gave them one chance to surrender. They took it. No one wanted to fight humans who had stopped playing gentle. The war ended not with a grand battle, but with a whimper. Conspiracy forces across the galaxy surrendered when they realized they couldn't win. Their leaders were arrested, tried, and imprisoned. The Coalition began the slow process of healing and rebuilding. 3 months later, Kelrith stood in the rebuilt council chamber. The Coalition had reformed, with new leadership and new rules designed to prevent another conspiracy. Today they were voting on a historic measure, offering humans a permanent seat on the High Council. Admiral Chen stood at the speaker's podium, uncomfortable in formal dress uniform. "Thank you for the honor," she said, "but we must decline. We're not governors or politicians. We're explorers. We came back to help our ancient home, and we did. Now we need to return to our mission." "You're leaving?" Draven asked. He had been elected the new High Council leader, determined to rebuild what the old council had broken. "Not completely," Chen said. "We'll leave a diplomatic presence. We'll maintain patrols along your borders. If you're threatened again, we'll come back. But we won't rule you. That's not what we do," she smiled. "Besides, you don't need us anymore. You're stronger than you think. You survived civil war and came out better for it. You'll be fine." "What will you do?" Kelrith asked. "What we always do, explore. There's a whole universe out there, archivist. We've barely scratched the surface. Who knows what we'll find?" Chen walked over to Kelrith and shook her hand. "Keep studying those old stories. Add some new ones while you're at it. The real ones, not the myths. Tell the next generation what really happened here." "I will," Kelrith promised. "And Admiral? Thank you. For proving that the best stories were true, that humans are as loyal as they are dangerous. We try, Chen said simply. The humans departed a week later. Their ships jumped to hyperspace, heading for the edge of the galaxy and beyond. The Coalition watched them go, feeling safer and stronger than they had in generations. Kelrith returned to her archive room, but it wasn't forgotten and dusty anymore. Students came to her now, wanting to learn about humans, about the real history hidden in myths. She taught them everything she had learned. She also started a new file labeled The Human Return. In it, she documented everything that had happened. The battles, the rescues, the war, and the peace that followed. She included Admiral Chen's final words before leaving. "We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to see what's beyond it. But we'll be damned if we let anyone burn it down while we're gone." Kelrith looked at the stars through her window and smiled. Somewhere out there, human ships were discovering new wonders. And somewhere in the Coalition, 47 species were finally understanding what the old myths had tried to teach them all along. Humans were real. They were dangerous. They were powerful. And they were the best friends anyone could ask for, as long as you gave them a reason to trust you. The legends had arrived in warships, just as the old stories predicted. But they had brought hope instead of conquest.